This week on Barbell Shrugged, we interview UFC fighter Durkin, and I get to pay him back for that cheap shot from last episode. Oh! What the hell? He's the most sensitive one.
I am like a little girl.
Yeah. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe, standing here with Chris Moore.
I got shot.
Chris Moore and Doug Larson. We are hanging out at Pat Cummins' house, a.k.a. Durkin, UFC fighter.
Yes. Welcome.
And, thanks for having us over. You fed us.
Gave us coffee and cheeses.
Yeah. We talked you into letting us do a show with you, and then you feed us food and give us drinks.
I'm a gracious host.
Yeah. I just want to kick it off with just this because the story is amazing. Can you tell us about the phone call? You've been fighting in the UFC for 1 year now.
Yes.
What was that first phone call? Tell us that story.
I'll give you a little backstory first.
Okay.
My road to the UFC was kind of different, and I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a struggle. There's no minor leagues, and if you would consider something a minor league in the UFC, it's just you're fighting at the Indian casino, and you're just trying to get wins under your belt to get noticed or to get into the big show.
Those fights are for attention. They're not. It's not like a system. There's not like.
It's like, here's $800. Good job. Yeah.
Right.
If that.
Three times a year. Well, it got to the point where I come from a good college wrestling background, and that's like the kiss of death for guys trying to get into fighting. They don't want to wrestle. They just they want to have a stand-up fight or whatever they're good at. So there was a point where
no one wants to fight wrestlers. Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I paid. I think my last. I fought 4 times before making it to the UFC, and my last 2 opponents, I think I had to give my purse to them.
Wow.
So I'm fighting for free,
Is that because nobody wants to fight wrestlers because they think you're just going to take them down and hold them on the ground? It's going to be a boring fight, and then they're not going to get fights in the future?
No, it's just it's all about your record. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. Everybody wants to get to 10-0,
right?
And then have Dana White call them up and say, hey, we noticed you're doing great things.
That's the dream.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So if you don't come from a wrestling background, or even if you do, and you run up, you say, yeah, sure, I'll go fight this college wrestler that it's a couple-time All-American. It's kind of like, I don't know if that's such a good idea, because
it's not gonna be good for your record.
Yeah, exactly.
When you have the option to go fight somebody who doesn't have that type of a background.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was so that's kind of the story. It was like scraping by, trying to get fights, and
it's hustling, man.
Yeah,
hustling.
and like there was no. There's really you can't really do anything else. If you want to do something, you got to be all in. It's like, a lot of guys are doing privates at the gym or running kickboxing classes or whatever it is. But I was like, I had a goal in mind, and obviously I'm old to be just starting into the game.
You're 34.
I'm 34 now.
Most guys getting in are probably early 20s.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've noticed that UFC, most of the people in our audience come from CrossFit or weightlifting, and those sports are just now getting to the point where you have young guys in it too.
Yeah.
Because especially CrossFit, like before it was like you could be 30 and successful, but now enough people have found it at a young enough age.
Moving earlier and
yeah,
earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing that's happening.
Yeah. And I always kick myself for not getting into it earlier. I was like, man, I spent way too much time wrestling internationally.
But you made a good point. Once you're in, you committed full, though.
Is that because you're trying to go to the Olympics?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Spent too much time trying to go to the Olympics.
I know. What a waste of time.
Yeah. I was making that $12,000 a year. Couldn't say no to that.
At least you're chasing something that is worthwhile.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what it was about. It wasn't about.
And it sets you up for now. This is not all wasted time. This hustle's got you to where you are now.
Yeah.
So you were having a hard time. You weren't getting that phone call from Dana White.
No,
And you were from what I was told, you were kind of on the edge of like, maybe I should just give this up.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I got to the point where my bills were starting to take me over, and I was lucky enough to I'm living at my manager's place. He's like, just stay with me, we'll see what we can do, and
he believed in you.
Yeah, I mean, it took a great amount of belief in me for him to make that kind of sacrifice.
You're missing teeth, for God's sakes.
Yeah, right.
Like,
That's a good point.
His house.
It really helps if you can find somebody who, because sometimes you're not going to believe it yourself.
Yeah.
And have somebody who really believes and can see things from a little bit higher level and say, look, man, just keep going. You're like this close. Just keep going.
Yeah, and Ryan Parsons, he's my manager, and he's sometimes he'd be that voice in my head that would say, oh man, you did so many things great today. There's such a small percentage of guys that can do what you do.
Yeah.
It would kind of fuel me a little bit and keep me going. Mm-hmm. But I got to the point where I was like, I didn't really have any bills. I didn't have a car. Like, I sold my car. I refused to sell my bike, though. And,
a man's got to draw the line.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm living in Orange County, California, and I'm riding everywhere on my bike. It's like, it just didn't work.
Things are a little spread out compared to some places.
Yeah. And it was like, I was just watching my bank account just dwindle away, and I'm just like, man, maybe there's something better. I should, maybe it's not going to happen.
Right.
So,
meanwhile, you can't get any money because nobody will fight you. Is that what was happening?
Well,
why couldn't you get a fight?
It's not like I was getting paid, big money to fight, but
so even if you got a fight, it didn't matter. It just wasn't enough money.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, it was but yeah, no, just because of a wrestling background, everybody's kind of like, I don't think I want to mess with that. Coming up through.
So nobody wants to lose to a guy who's 2-0 or something like that. It looks bad to lose to somebody who's brand new, but you're not brand new. You've been wrestling for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So you're good, but nobody knows that because you're not a big name yet. So it's like you lose to a guy who's good, but that doesn't have a big name, and it looks bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the formula. You win those. Maybe you're like, okay, I'm 8-0. And my last two fights, I need to beat somebody that's got a decent record, so it looks good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm picking fights with everybody in my weight class from every state. We got a list from every commission from every state of all the 205-pound fighters, and just slowly we just started ticking them off the list. We would call someone. We call, or we call if they had management, or we call their gym.
Did you call them names?
I wouldn't do it. I'm not that kind of guy. But, I mean, and it was such an unbelievable struggle. Like, we had easy 50 guys say, no thanks.
Yeah.
And it just became like this whole thing. And I was like, okay, at some point I got to think this is not meant to be right now.
Right.
So, but towards the end, I ended up getting a job at a coffee shop because, I'm so broke, and, I need to start the little bills that I had, I got to feed myself. I got to,
It slows the bleeding.
whatever.
A little bit of cash can slow the bleeding.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I mean, working a minimum wage job at the coffee shop down the street isn't, and it's not.
And it's got to be really tough because you're sitting around making some guy a fucking macchiato, whatever, caramel, this, that, soy-free.
Yeah, they pull up to the drive-through in their Porsche, and they're like, come on, man, give me.
And then you had to go, the goal is to be on UFC, and I'm pouring this fucking asshole of coffee.
Yeah.
How do you keep focused through this time?
I know. Well, it started to make me feel like, I'm seriously working a drive-through window for minimum wage, and I'm just like,
College degree.
yeah, a college degree.
You went to Penn State?
Yeah, and I'm just like, I should be doing something better with my life. Like,
What did you major in college?
I was a fine art major. Yes. So maybe I didn't have
Those are
the big career
that's
path
the type
in front
of
me.
major that gets you the big bucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You go over job interviews. Well, I majored in art. I like to fight and punch people. I make a hell of a latte. What do you got for me?
Yeah. There's not many offers there.
Maybe UFC is what you should be focused on.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's a good lesson. Like, if you want to get the goal, fuck, man, you'll do whatever it takes to keep things going in the right direction.
Yeah.
But this was the last shot. Huh?
So what was the breakthrough?
So I had this job at the coffee shop, and it fit my schedule perfectly. Well, I mean, some people might argue that. I started work at 3:30 in the morning, and I was done by 9 o'clock. So I could, my first session of training is 10, so I could make it to training, and then, I'd take a nap during the day, train at night, and so it worked well, but not for a sane person. Nobody wants. Nobody's like, yeah, sure, I'll get up at 3 and go down. Jump on my bike and ride down to the coffee shop and put in a shift, bake some croissants and serve some people some coffee through a drive-through window. But I think I probably did that for about a month, and I remember one night before going to bed, I found out that Daniel Cormier is fighting. I forget who was fighting it. Oh, Rashad Evans. That's the big fight, and really, really late minute notice. I think it was 10 days out at that point. They said, Rashad pulled out with a knee injury, and I think he tore his ACL or something. And
a big unknown opportunity you could never have seen coming, but here it is.
Yeah, and I didn't think anything of it. And Ryan's, we're kind of talking back and forth. He's like, maybe he's like, would you fight Daniel? Because I have a history with Daniel. I wrestle with him, and we trained together at the Olympic Training Center quite a bit, and we had the same goals in mind. He obviously made the cut, made it to the Olympics, but we were in the same crowd of people, so we're friendly with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I'll fight that guy, and I was completely dead serious, like, yeah, I would take that fight.
Yeah.
And not thinking, oh, this could be my shot, or this is what's going to make it happen.
Just jumping on the opportunity.
Yeah. So I sent out like a little innocent tweet, like it wasn't, it was like nothing.
I heard it wasn't innocent.
And well,
Andy's laughing. From your view, I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. No, because he's the whole thing. The reason why he came down to 205 from heavyweight is because he didn't want to fight his buddy or his brother Cain Velasquez, who's the UFC champ at heavyweight. So, I just said, hey, I'm friends with Daniel. I'm friends with DC, but we're not brothers. I'll fight the guy. Whatever. It's just like something that. And at the time, I have like 300 Twitter followers, and like but
then somebody tweets back, ooh, snap,
and I get excited, like, ooh, I got a favorite on that tweet, like I'm doing something right.
And all of a sudden, it's like 1,000 retweets.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So, the next morning, I go to work, super early in the morning, and
get the croissants out.
Everything's
normal.
Yeah. Put them in the proofing oven, and it's like. All of a sudden, and I'm like, I'm working away. I'm not really, I keep feeling my phone kind of vibrating. And, I'm just like, I was way too busy at work. I'm like seriously working the
need bread and shit, man.
Yeah,
muffins are important.
Yeah, I got to get the muffins done, and the boss is gonna take money out of my sweet paycheck if I burn the muffins. So my phone's ringing in my pocket. I'm at the drive-through window, serving coffee to people. And I think I got, I went on break, and I see like, wow, like my Twitter's kind of blowing up right now, and like I didn't realize what was going on, but I had 15 minutes, I'm flipping through it, and I was like, but I didn't have enough time to like really look into it and be like, oh, this is why my Twitter's blowing up. I just kind of was like, oh, like more, a couple people retweeted what I tweeted, or whatever, no big deal. So. Back to work, my manager keeps calling me. I keep looking at my phone. I'm like, dude, I'm at work. Like, what are you doing? It's quitting.
Yeah.
I'll be done. I'm done.
Meanwhile, he's probably losing his fucking mind.
Yeah, like,
God damn it! Open.
He's like, answer your phone.
Answer your phone.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm done in a half hour, bro. Like, I'll call you back. Just chill.
Mm-hmm.
So next thing I know, he busts through the door of the coffee shop, and like you guys all know Ryan, he comes busting through. He's in like he's basically in his jammies, he's like he's got sweatpants on and like his like t-shirt that looks like if he had hair it'd be all like matted down, and he's like
but he's bald.
do you want to take this fight or not, like, and I'm like, whoa, I'm like, I told you, whatever, and he's like, it could happen. He's like, you need he's like, he's kind of shaking, and I'm just like, what is up, man? Like, relax. Like, I got 15 more minutes of work. Just chill. We'll handle this later. Like my boss is looking at me like really angry, and so he's he busts through the door and does his whole thing, and and he's like, if you're serious about this, you got to take this call right now.
Yeah.
And like no introduction. No, it's like just take the call, and I'm like,
life is presenting you the opportunity.
Yeah.
You don't quite know, but you got to jump on it or not jump on it.
yeah, exactly. So I look over at my my boss, and she's like, you know what, just punch out and get out of here. Like we don't need you anymore. And I kind of was like, did I just get fired? I was like, what? But I'm like, whatever. I got it. So I grabbed the phone from my manager. I meet him outside, and all of a sudden I'm talking to Dana White on the phone. It's like that call came.
Yeah.
It was so weird. And he's like, hey.
CEO of is that the title? CEO of UFC.
He's the president.
President of the
Yeah.
UFC.
Yeah. So he's and he's like, tell me about this, man. He's like, and he knew the whole backstory. Apparently while I was at work, my manager's feeding these stories to all the media. Ariel Helwani is like
doing a manager's job.
Yeah, and he's creating this whole backstory. I'm like, and at first I'm like, wow, that tweet I sent was really something. But no, like he's on the backside, like feeding stories, and he's like,
right.
And so Dana White's all of a sudden like, hey, I heard you made Daniel Cormier cry in training. What's that all about? And I'm like, hell yeah, I did. Man, yeah. So he's like, you willing to tell that story and run with this? And I'm like, yeah, man, let's
Can
do
we
it.
run some gladiator music over the story?
Yeah. Cue the theme music. Yeah. So yeah, I talked to him real quick, and he's like, all right, we'll send over a contract, and like, that's 9 days out from the fight, and it just
How life can change quick, man.
It was crazy that night. I was on live, Fox Sports Live, like talking trash.
So
to
the morning
Daniel,
you're making
like,
croissants, the same day, and then that evening you're talking
exact same
shit
day.
with a champ on TV.
Yeah.
Wow, that's quite the
And
swing.
you fought 9 days later.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Well, it could have gone better. I just
9 days. By the way, 9 days notice. Most fighters are at least 8 weeks of notice and have this big preparation strategy. So 9 days is super short notice.
There's a lot to do before.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of
and
time
you're
to
not
do it.
in that case. You're not fighting the same guy that you wrestled years ago.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
he's
But
totally different dude.
also, I was kind of naive to the whole thing. I didn't realize what a training camp could do, because at that time, I'd be getting ready for a fight, or I'd be training, but I never had a full camp because I never actually knew that if the opponent was going to bail on me or not. And, so I didn't really understand. I'm like, what are these guys talking about fight camps for?
Well, can you describe to us, because I bet most
stay
people,
healthy, and
most people have no idea what a training camp is. So what?
Yeah.
So what does a training camp look like? You obviously, I'm guessing you did a 9-day training camp.
yeah, it was
and you've
okay.
had,
Just don't do anything. Make weight.
And you've had you've had like 3 fights since then. What do the training camps look like?
Well, a training camp then it was nothing. It was just kind of like just maintaining our training and kind of ramp things up and then pull back before the fight so you're fresh. But a training camp now is you do 6 to 8 weeks of you're training hard training, and it's kind of all sequenced. You're doing your big cardio stuff in the beginning, build that base, and then as you get closer and closer to a fight, everything's fast and short. So it's kind of there's a whole there's a method to all the madness. You go through this thing and you pull back at certain times and you push hard at certain times, and then probably the last week to 10 days you really start tapering hard.
Yeah.
And you focus on getting your weight down and just feeling fresh,
speedy and snappy
exactly.
and fresh,
and
good spirits, good mood.
Yeah.
It's the basic
and have
approach you
timing.
would take with lifting. It's that same basic approach. Establish the base, widen your ability to do work, get more specific, turn up the volume, and then back off and get refreshed and go smash.
Yeah, and it's that's the recipe to peak.
Yeah.
You're at your absolute best.
What's training look like outside of a training camp? So, training camp, 6 to 8 weeks. Your life revolves around fighting.
Right.
How does your life look outside of the training camp? Does it still revolve around fighting, or to what degree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm a guy that really I like to stay in the room and keep training and learning. Because I'm young in the sport, so I need all the technique I can get, and I have a real hunger to be in there. It's
stay
not like,
surrounded by these people who are giving you the good influence.
Yeah,
driving the
exactly.
effort.
So I think for other people it's different. I think a lot of people take a decent amount of time off. They'll have a fight, and they'll take a couple months and be like, oh, I just don't want to be in the gym at all. I'm just going to kind of do my own thing. And I do that to a certain degree, but, I'm a very active person. Like I love to go out, ride my mountain bike, and but at the same time, I do that stuff, and I love lifting weights. So I'll get back in and do that kind of stuff. Work on my strength and work on my cardio, but mostly, I'm outside having fun. Because in a training camp, I can't go ride my bike. Like
during that
like
8
I
weeks,
want
all
to.
your training is.
Yeah, like I don't want to go crash my bike and get all beat up and be like, oh, I'm no good in training today.
Yeah.
So, you kind of have to give up certain things, and then, I'll go out. And,
so I kind of want to say this is you've had 3 more fights. We talked about you took 1 fight and you lost.
Yeah,
You've been in the UFC for a year, but we didn't mention you had 3 fights since then.
Right.
So you've had 4 fights in 1 year and you won the last 3.
Yeah.
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 So you're not bad.
Yeah.
You're actually a pretty good fighter.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why, but they just ranked me 15th in my weight class, and so that's kind of, it's not. A lot of people are like, "Oh man, congratulations!" I'm like, that's not where I want to be. But okay, thanks. Like it shows improvement, but I believe that I should have went out there and won that first fight, no matter what the situation was.
Yeah.
So
is that something you're looking forward to? You having a rematch with Cormier down the line?
yeah.
Always smiling wide.
No, definitely. That's the story we want to sell. Like it was an underdog story, but now let's make it a comeback story.
Mm-hmm.
And then
When you can have a real training camp for it.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's coming for you.
Well, what does your weight training look like during the camp? Or just in general? Like what do you do? What do you do for training in the gym?
I train with Marin Sorelli. I actually met her years and years ago at the Olympic Training Center, and she was a female weightlifter, and she was she's got plenty of credentials to her name.
Yeah.
She's legit.
Yeah, legit.
And I never it's just like a friendly relationship you have with all different athletes at that place. You just kind of make friends and whatever. And we would never really stay in touch, but sometimes we bump into each other. And then she ended up starting to work with a couple of the guys that I train with. And he's some of my buddies would come in and be like, hey, do you know this girl named Marin? I'm like, yeah, there's only one girl that that named Marin that I know of.
Only one Marin in Orange County.
Yeah.
Who's also an awesome weightlifter.
Yeah. So we got reconnected, and so I really at that point I really started amping up my Olympic weightlifting, and and also I like to add an element, like a speed element, and I also like to add, depending on who my opponent is, a more muscle endurance type of lifting as well. So
Yeah, and you've had a lot of muscular endurance type of training with a wrestling background.
Well, that's the traditional approach for resistance training, right? You do a lot of reps. And that's
Right.
what fighters did for a while.
yeah.
You're focusing more on the being explosive now.
Yeah,
So
because-
more of your
yeah.
training has explosive in nature just because of you have so much background in the muscular endurance.
Yeah, and so much of what we do is, it's that long grind. It's 15 minutes of basically touching somebody or feeling resistance and all
Right,
that
right.
stuff. So what we want to focus on is quickness, speed, and quickness.
The weightlifting was a recent introduction to your training, right?
That style. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think it's influenced your fighting?
I think
Because it's not everybody in UFC is doing snatches and clinch. This is a new introduction.
Yeah, and I was all along back in my my days where I couldn't afford a gym membership or couldn't afford a strength coach. I would just kind of do my own thing.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed lifting weights, but it wasn't quite. I'd just be like getting creative. I'll do a 1-arm press and lay on a ball and do something weird, and just to make myself sore. But and I think all that has a place.
It's experiment.
Yeah.
It's not, there's
chalk
no
it up
value
to
to
those
that. But
experimental years. No, but yeah, through college, I was never. Penn State wasn't a big Olympic weightlifting program. Through all of their sports, their football team I thought really suffered from that.
Yeah.
They did all that high intensity, just
HIIT
kinda-
stuff. And
Yeah. So
they didn't have a strength coach specifically at the
well,
time.
we had a strength coach we actually, I think after my freshman year, we hired a strength coach, and he.
Yeah, actually, for the audience, like if you didn't know, college strength coaches are actually a really relatively new development. That was not the way it's been until the last 10 years. A lot of colleges still don't even have one. Maybe the D1 school do, but the D2, D3 schools, they don't necessarily have a strength coach.
Yeah,
and most high schools don't still.
And making things sports specific too. Like at the time when I was in school, like there were strength coaches, but it was kind of like, this is the program we're handing out to every student athlete, and it's this is what we do, and this is what you're gonna do. Mm-hmm. And then so I think I did that for a year, and was just like, I didn't see a benefit from the strength coaches were kind of like, they just want to see you puke, or what I mean. It wasn't like, it was just more like
no pain, no gain.
Yeah, it's that old school attitude. And so we hired a guy that he was an All-American at Penn State, back in the day, and he also is really really great strength coach. So we hired him on, and I think I was like his experiment, because at the time I was really undersized and I was wrestling heavyweight, and so he was like feeding me diets. He's like, all right, you need to be eating like a maniac all the time, and here's your weightlifting plan. This is everybody else's,
right?
But this is for
get
you.
Mass on.
What was different about yours?
It was just much more heavy, lower reps. I mean, at times,
right.
he was good about changing things up, but he was, anytime I was lifting, he would be there, because I was kind of like his experiment. Like, all right, if I can turn this guy into, if I can put 40 pounds on this guy and, do something with him, it's going to prove, why I'm here.
Yeah.
And, he did that. I walked into school 200 pounds maybe. And my senior year, I was 265. Like,
whoa.
just like totally maxed out. I mean, I don't have like the biggest frame. I'm a big guy, but not like that.
No.
And I just,
I
ass
can't
out
imagine
to
you
here.
be that big.
Yeah.
What are you walking around now?
I'm like 225.
225.
Yeah, so you went a little past what's optimal, but you settled in. Like, that probably laid. You probably came away with a bigger structure. The muscle is probably still lingering. It's a good thing to go through. Not optimal for fighting, maybe, but great for setting you up for this success.
Getting that big and then cutting back.
Kind
of set you up for success.
It taught me a lot about my body and what I react well to. As far as nutrition and everything involved in that. And it just kind of forced me. I'm like religious with drinking water, and and I basically did that just because I'm like stepping in the scale, in front of my coach before practice, and he's like expecting me to be a couple pounds heavier than I was last week, so I'm just like constantly chugging water. Yeah,
that's good.
See, coach, I've been lifting hard this week.
Yeah, good habit.
All the while you're just like, I gotta go pee.
So bad.
It's harder and harder every week.
Yeah,
even more water than last week.
It's awesome space to go to, because strength is such an enduring, lasting adaptation. Like, even if you in the future, if you go through a phase where you get a little skinny, you can't train as much, whatever, as soon as you touch a barbell again, the strength comes back. And
well, that's what I noticed when I started going back to my that Olympic style weightlifting with Marin. I noticed like all the little pains I had. Like I had my shoulder be a little banged up, and I was like, man, I can't even do like a real bench press. But and she's like, well, just do it really light, see how it feels, and like, man, it just kind of like, I don't know what it was, but it like strengthened my bones back up, and like, I just felt like all around way healthier than I had been. Doing all this other stuff that I was just kind of making up. Mm-hmm. It was like, wow, I can't believe that. You don't think of like, okay, do a snatch, do some squats, do these kind of what people might call dangerous free weight exercises. Like, man, all of a sudden I feel great. I feel so much better.
You were feeling beat up from the other training.
Yeah,
and now you're doing the big complex movements, and all of a sudden, things kind of coming together.
My rest periods are starting to increase a little bit. I'm not trying to get.
And you also said you used to train really frequently and hard. Like, you'd say probably maximum. Like no pain, no gain. More is better.
Yeah.
Don't be a pussy. Keep lifting. Keep running. Keep
exactly. And that's the school that I came from. So I was like, all right, I got to apply that to what I'm doing. I'm my own strength coach, so.
Super typical of
hard on
wrestling.
myself,
Super typical with wrestling.
Yeah.
Make the
hard
too
all the
much.
time.
Make the practice hard as possible, and the fight feels easy, right?
Well, I mean, it makes wrestlers like the toughest athletes, maybe the toughest athletes on earth, but at the same time, not exactly the healthiest or the
Or just
performing
unnecessary.
optimally. I mean, you
Oh,
may
yeah.
be you may
Just not
be so
necessary.
mentally tough that you can push and grind through anything.
Well, yeah.
But if you just back down on the training, sometimes your performance can be much better.
Yeah, I'll say that, like 10 years ago, I was way tougher than I am now. I mean, the shit I did was
I
ridiculous.
think we were all tougher 10 years ago.
Well,
We are now.
yeah, obviously. But I just look back at all the crazy amount, just the sheer volume of what we did.
Yeah.
Not to mention we're pushing to like breaking point almost every, twice a day. I mean, that was pretty ridiculous. I look back at that and I'm just like, whoa. Like I could put 2 days of wrestling together in a row, but man, I'm going to need 2 days off right after that.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
Yeah.
But I mean, part of that's obviously aging, getting older.
How often do you train now?
Let's take a break and then we'll look at like how your training used to be compared to now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it take to kick so much ass in UFC?
Ooh.
Hey guys, Mike Bledsoe here from the Barbell Shrugged podcast, here to do a technique WOD on the snatch. The snatch is my favorite movement of all time. Not just because of the name, but because it is a full body movement. It's very athletic. It takes a lot of precision, finesse. It is probably the hardest thing that you could master in the world of fitness. If you don't know what a snatch is, Alex, my assistant here, will show you exactly what a snatch looks like. Give us a snatch, Alex. So some of you may be thinking, well, that was easy. He just grabbed a bar and he threw it over his head, and it looked silly. But a lot of you, if you're familiar with CrossFit or the sport of weightlifting, are very familiar with that and understand how difficult it can be. So we're going to go over the movement, break it down just a little bit. I'm going to start with the starting position. So this is not a deadlift. A lot of people make the common mistake that they should set up like a deadlift and they bring their shins right up to the bar. That is definitely what you should not do. So for most people, that's going to be, the bar is going to start over the ball of their foot, all right? So a little bit forward of midfoot, just as Alex is set up here. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. As you get more into practice, you'll find exactly what position works best for you. It's going to depend, it's going to vary from person to person, little by little. All right, so he's going to start standing there. He's now going to reach down. He's going to actually push his knees forward and let his shins come to the bar, all right? So again, not like a deadlift. If you're doing a deadlift, your hips would be higher. So Alex has his hips lower here. Notice that he has his shoulders in front of the bar here. So if I'm looking at this arm, it's almost straight up and down. What he doesn't want to do is sit back towards, you don't want to sit back anymore. You don't want to look like that. You want to bring your shoulders in front of the bar. This back is going to stay nice and tight here. And then he's also going to be engaging his lats a little bit right here. So as he comes up, he's going to be using his shoulders to keep that bar close to his body. So we're going to do the first half of the snatch. So Alex is going to lift this bar up and bring it up to his hips. And so as he's here, again, even right here at the hips, his shoulders are slightly in front of the bar. His weight is towards his heels here. So if you were to think about where your weight should be, it's at the front of your heels here. All right, let's go back to the floor. So that's what it's going to look like. You're going to squeeze the bar off the floor. You don't want to yank it off the floor, which is another common mistake. So he's going to squeeze it off the floor. He's going to get above the knees. He's going to touch the bar to his hips. And then he's going to jump and pull himself underneath the bar. So he's going to let that bar, he's going to squeeze that bar off the ground. As it comes up, he's going to explode and jump up. That bar is going to meet him at his hips. And it's going to get over his head. The biggest problem most people have is keeping that bar close and the bar meeting their hips, all right? Once you've got that, now you really need to focus on pulling underneath the bar. A real common mistake is there's a lot of hips. No, we have to edit that out. One of the things that people do is they find they can really meet the bar really well with their hips, and they find they're snapping that, and then they're really lazy about getting underneath. And so what you really want to do is make sure that after you master that hip extension and really firing that bar up off of your hips, that you then remember to involve your arms just as much as you did with your hips. So this is much of an emphasis on pulling underneath as it is with pulling up. So think about pulling up with your hips and underneath with your arms and shoulders. It's one continuous pull. All right, so remember that, and watch Alex. He keeps the bar nice and close as it goes past his chest, past his face, and overhead. Hopefully this is going to help you move forward in your adventures and It's an adventure. In your snatch adventures. All right. I can't even think now. For more information about how to perfect your snatch, damn it. All right, for more information on the snatch, go to barbellshrugged.com. We've got more technique videos, technique WOD videos, breaking down the snatch to the smaller components of the lifts.
There you go. What Mike's trying to say is that this is kind of a general overview, and we have other videos on Technique WOD where we break down the movement into its component parts. We go over like the first pull, the second pull, the transition, the catch phase, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're more advanced and you want to have more details on each specific part of the lift and you want mobility drills or other weightlifting drills, I feel like I'm just like really close to you right now. And you have more weight, you
got to talk into the microphone.
I felt weird. I was like right here on.
All right. If you want any more information on all that other stuff, go to barbellshrugged.com. Problem solved. And we're back with Durkin.
Hey.
So we were getting into, Doug was starting to ask, and I said, no, we must take a break.
We must break.
What's your training look like now compared to, I guess you went from wrestling and now you're in UFC, and when you're wrestling, you didn't have control over your strength coaches and your coaches. Now that you're in the UFC, you know, you've got Ryan Parsons kind of managing a lot of your training.
Yeah.
You're working some with Andy Galpin.
Yeah.
There's Dr. Andy.
That's how we found you.
Yeah.
And so like, what's it look like now, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I think an important part of MMA training now, mistakes that people make is, since there's so many different aspects that you need to train. I got to do my jiu-jitsu, I got to wrestle, I got to do my kickboxing, or Muay Thai, I got to do my boxing. There's like so much. I got to do my strength training. I got to make sure I'm getting my running in, or whatever it is. It's like, okay, you can't fit all that in one day. And also, all those specific things are controlled by a different person. So if all those people aren't communicating, you're gonna be overtrained.
Yeah, your coaches have to talk.
Yeah.
They're all trying to give you the best possible experience.
Right.
They all might be
exactly.
pushing you to the limit when you're with them, not knowing that the other guy's trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Eventually wearing you out.
Yeah, like your boxing coach isn't gonna bring you in and say, you know what, you don't look fresh today. Why don't you just, let's just do a round and we'll send you on your way.
Yeah.
Because they wanna say, oh, I had a great workout with Pat today, and whatever else.
I guess becoming tired is more likely to hit you harder and push you harder, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like,
if they do that too, like they might be like, oh, you look kind of tired. Why don't you just go home? You might walk away thinking like, was he actually just tired and he just wanted me to leave? Now he's taking a nap, and then what am I paying that guy for?
Is he fucking with me?
Yeah.
Do I say no? I'm gonna fight. What's going on?
Yeah.
Is he playing head games with me? Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the many important things that Ryan Parsons does for me. He acts as a head coach. So he oversees everybody, communicates with everybody, and he'll say, hey, I was with Pat this morning. He's not moving his feet real well. Why don't you, ease back on him? And it's kind of without me knowing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think, in a certain way, ignorance is bliss for me. If
Well, it takes the burden away. You can focus on the training.
Yeah,
You don't have to worry about what the coach is thinking about you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about that communication. That's all taken care of. You just show up and do what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what the most successful athletes
The
have.
athlete needs to make as little decisions as possible. Just believe in what they're doing and attack it, and hopefully the head coach is in charge the whole time and leading you.
Yeah.
where you need to go.
Yeah.
And Ryan is that guy.
Yeah, and we've known each other long enough. He knows me as well as I know myself when it comes to training, and he can well, I would say he almost knows me better than I know myself, because I'll kind of get stubborn and be like, I'm going to work through this, or
Right.
I
And
can't
he's
only
learning
do
you as
3 rounds
and
today.
not just physically, but he's learning you as a person, like what's going on in your life, what he's struggling with, what he's setting.
Yeah,
he's weighing
exactly.
all of that and how the tweaks need to be made, right?
Yeah. I mean, so he knows every, he has a 360 view of what's going on in my life and in my training. And I think that's a super valuable thing, and I think a lot of guys don't do that.
Yeah, and if for anyone listening to this, if you're a CrossFit athlete, you should be using this as an example of how you can alter your training as a CrossFit athlete, where if you have a gymnastics coach and a weightlifting coach and a running coach and any other coaches, you still should have one central head coach that's communicating with all the rest of those coaches to have the best possible training experience. So this isn't just about MMA necessarily.
No, yeah.
This is about being an athlete.
Anytime you're trying to get good at a lot of disparate things, a lot of things that are competing for your resource and your attention, somebody's got to manage that, and it can't be you.
Yeah, exactly. And my inclination coming into it is like, I got wrestling kind of locked up here. I need to learn how to punch somebody, or I need to learn how to kick.
Mm-hmm.
And initially that was kind of, let's introduce that, and kind of be heavy on, obviously you got to learn some combinations. You got to learn how to throw a punch, and that's
I learned earlier today that you can throw a punch.
yeah.
You got punched, and it was in the liver.
No, that was a solar plexus.
Solar
The first
plexus
time it
shot.
was.
We changed it up.
I took a liver shot and a solar
He's
plexus.
gonna buy my shot with
Hey.
Yeah, watch that. Watch the intro to Ryan Parsons' episode.
3 seconds in, you'll be glad you
I
pulled up
got,
the episode.
I got caught off guard.
By design. We didn't tell you that. We totally said, hey, dude, when he gets to 2.5, punch him as hard as you can.
I thought I was gonna get punched like 10 seconds into it, but I got punched like 2 seconds into it.
It was for the
I
good
thought
of
I
the
was
show.
still talking.
And then you try to justify why it was a good thing afterward. You're like, it's good to get punched in the stomach every once in a while. I think it's good for you.
I feel more alive now than I did before the punch.
It was invigorating. It's like
Anytime a human faces death, they never felt more alive.
exactly, yeah.
I think I
Something
pat you on
like
the back. So, are you spitting up green bile now? Are you okay, buddy?
that. It's a good punch. Yeah.
So I knew you could take it.
So what do you got coming up next?
No, nothing really. I'm just kind of like in chill mode a little bit. Just kind of getting back into training. I banged up my knee just a little bit in the fight, so I've been kind of normally.
When was your last fight?
December 20th.
This hasn't been that long.
No, it's been about
So
a month.
this is basically kind of like an off season.
That's a month ago for the audience.
Yeah, so you're taking stock of what went good and bad in the fight. You're saying what needs to be, like, where am I slipping, and maybe my general work capacity needs to be widened again before I get back into a training camp. So you're just taking time to see what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's good to be super critical and say, how could I improve on what I did.
Yeah.
Being 15th in the world, or in the world, I guess 15th in your weight class in UFC. How long does it typically take for someone in your position to try to get that title fight? Like you don't have to climb 15 spots because that's shifting all the time.
Yeah. It kind of depends. The recipe, there's no like set recipe, but I think if you go up there and beat up 2 or 3 top 10 guys and do it impressively, okay, that's worth the conversation.
Yeah. Something that really has not been embraced in the CrossFit community is watching recordings of themselves in competition.
Oh.
Some people definitely do it, but by and large, as a group or as a community, it's not really like something that you're just expected to do. Like, how much of that do you guys do?
Oh, quite a bit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, after every fight, I mean that's really all you have to go off of. You don't know who your next opponent is. You can't watch any film on that guy. It's kind of like, all right, work on getting yourself better. And I mean, that's the easiest way to do it is, okay, I'm going to watch what I did in this fight, see what I like, see what I don't like.
So, yeah, do you guys formally, like, sit down? Like, how often after the fight would you do that? I guess Ryan will sit down with you, analyze what happened, of course.
Yeah.
And then maybe do you set action items and spot weaknesses and things that will sort of guide and loosely shape the next 4 months, 6 months of preparations, what have you?
Yeah. Yeah. To a certain degree. And then, you kind of throw a monkey wrench into it when you say, all right, now you're fighting this guy who's good at this, or this is his specialty. So it's kind of like, all right, we got to tailor our training towards this.
Yeah.
Like my last fight, I knew I'd be grappling quite a bit. So it was kind of get that endurance back up. You know, did a lot of gymnastic training, did a lot of like circuit stuff, rope climbs. You know, just like kind of get your forearms ready for. You know, you're trying to control somebody's wrists, and you know you're wrestling around with somebody on the ground for 15 minutes. You know,
grip strength and endurance is highly correlated to like a good
just
wrestler.
Talking, man. Just talking about Andy said you had amazing grip strength, and also said 8-liter lung volume on this guy. What's normal, Andy? You said something like 4. Yeah,
Damn.
double the lung volume of average person.
He has the largest lung volume he's ever seen.
He was like, "You should be 7 feet tall."
So if you
like,
if you can move,
7 feet tall, don't tell me that.
if you can move,
Dude, it's probably good that you're not 7 feet. You got the lungs of a 7 footer. That's nice.
if you got strong, healthy hands and you can move air, you're a bad motherfucker, I guess.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I remember the first wrestling match I ever had when I was like in 7th grade, maybe. I walked off after it's like 4 minutes when you're in junior high or something like that. It wasn't very long. I walked off and I couldn't close my hands. I was just like, "What's wrong with my forearm, with my hands? I think I broke my hands."
I
just couldn't close my hands.
My grip strength when I did jiu-jitsu was definitely a lot better than it is now.
And that's one thing you don't see. You don't see a ton maybe in CrossFit. I guess there's not a whole lot of talk of how important it is to have strong hands.
I don't think it's talked about, but a lot of people are focused on it, just being able to hang on to kipping bars for kipping pull-ups and then turn around and be able to pull deadlifts and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So it's something that manifests.
Yeah, I've had to work with athletes specifically for grip strength, but it's one of those things you can't have them. You don't want them hanging overhead for too long, because then you're going to tear up the shoulders. So then you got to go to farmer's carries, and then there's other ways to train grip strength, and then you can do like top holds with the deadlift, and then like 5-second hold at top, go down, come up. So it's more of a grip. You're still doing deadlifts, but you're working on your grip. And there's definitely ways to do that. I don't know. What are some ways you do to? I mean, have you ever focused on grip, or are you just naturally strong grip strength?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things that's transferred from just wrestling for so long.
Yeah.
You know, you leave a practice, like a 2-hour practice where you're doing long, hard live goes, and you feel that same, like you said, 4 minutes. My first match, I got off the mat, I couldn't move my hands. It's like you want to get to that point, I guess, and that built your strength. I mean, it was like never like
you fight. Okay, rest. My hands are totally destroyed, and I can barely close them. Now it's like, okay, ready, 3, 2, 1, another round. You just after doing that for a couple of years, or maybe in your case, all your youth, your hands are just gonna be tough as nails.
Yeah. And I mean, we would occasionally, like you do the wrist rollers or whatever.
I remember
it is.
that back in the day.
Yeah, way back.
One of the most impressive things you could do in the high school gym, man. Yell and scream and twirl the rope around the barbell.
Dude, all you gotta do is get a wooden dowel, just cut off the end of a broomstick, drill a hole through it, tie a rope, hang a weight.
Oh, we do. We
roll
it
it
works with a
really
PVC pipe because it's big
bigger.
diameter.
Oh
it's
yeah,
harder,
you can get varying sizes. You can do all sorts of stuff. Totally forgot about that.
It's probably a super great
all the
warm-up
time.
before you train, like to have a better grip on the barbell. It's a good thing to do a couple times.
I used to. I don't know if it actually was beneficial, but for baseball, so I can be able to.
Oh yeah, man, those guys.
Well, when you
swing
hit
that bat, you know what I mean?
when you
flick that wrist a little bit harder when you throw.
Yeah, when you go.
No,
here,
when
that
they catch you for the high school photo, you wanted huge Ripley arms, like fucking Mark McGuire.
Mark McGuire
arms.
had giant forearms. Fuck it, just doing forearms
I'm doing
all
my
day.
wrist curls. I'm popping androstenedione. I'm
Did
dyeing
all
my
that.
facial hair red.
He said creatine and andro done. Your GNC is like behind the glass. I want everything behind the glass, so you have to unlock.
You're brushing your teeth
Back
next
to me.
morning. You're brushing your teeth. Is it my nipples are super puffy? What is this shit?
Yeah, my mom said it was just
Acne?
puberty.
Acne?
I was getting puberty when I was like 17 again.
Yeah, but mom, do you go? Is it normal for a little boy to go through puberty twice? Shit, is, son. I guess. Fuck. What are you taking again?
My balls are really small.
Mom, can I talk to you about something?
Oh fuck. So what you want to talk about now?
Yeah, right.
Officially derailed.
We're just talking about how little our balls are.
Okay, so I was about to say, what do you project the next fight to be? Is it this year? Later in the summer? I mean, what are you eyeing?
Yeah, for sure. I want to shoot to hopefully a fight in April.
Yeah.
So not too. I don't like to take much time off. I'm not. Some of those guys really like. Oh yeah, I want to take some time, get fat, and for me, it's always. I'm always thinking I want to get to get to the top as quickly as I can. And I think doing that, staying active is the most important thing. But also, the one thing that I lack when it comes to fighting is experience in the cage. You know,
what do you think? Do you think it's because you're 34 that you're wanting to take fights so frequently? You really don't have another decade.
I mean, yeah, exactly. To a certain degree,
you should have another decade, but a lot of these guys are 24.
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of, in order to get good enough to really seriously contend for a title, in terms of the skills in jiu-jitsu and boxing and every other discipline, Muay Thai and everything else, is it generally accepted, like in lifting, if a guy who squats a certain amount of weight has just accumulated so much work over the years? Is there there's a certain amount of work that's got to get done, or some people just get to these high skill levels just so quick? Can you be an all natural at some of these things and just breeze through, or does everybody have to put in a certain amount of work to achieve enough mastery to be seriously competitive?
Yeah, I think that's why it's so good to have a wrestling background, because that's something that it's very difficult to pick up in a couple of years, or kind of randomly, oh yeah, I'm just gonna see how good I am at wrestling. You look across the MMA board, and George St. Pierre was able to pick up wrestling.
One of few,
and he's never wrestled, and Jose Aldo. Those are the only guys that I know that don't have a wrestling background that can still wrestle guys that are at the highest caliber wrestlers in MMA.
So there are genetic freaks. So there's freaks in nature.
Yeah, there are, but I think when it comes to boxing,
too. I think the wrestler has that work ethic that's just phenomenal, and a lot of that's built in. Kids self-select themselves to be wrestlers who happen to have great work ethic, and then if you're not self-selecting, that's probably being bred into you.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to show up to wrestling practice day after day and not become tough as nails.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also think that it's a little easier. It was easy if you're an athlete. I think it's easy to pick up boxing, or it's easy to pick up, learn how to kick, or those kind of things. Maybe you're not as savvy in a fight with those things. There are guys. You can watch the Glory kickboxing fights, and you see those guys that are just so comfortable, and they have so much experience, and they're pinpointing liver shots and doing things that I'm not going to go out there and just kind of bob and weave and throw a couple combinations and just watch a guy fall down.
Anderson Silva would be one of those.
I can do enough and mix in with what I'm good at. You know what I mean? Because it's not. It's not a straight, I'm going to stand here and box with you. There's so many different elements to it. And I think being able to wrestle is super important.
Super fundamental, right?
It evens the playing field a lot.
Do you think the fact that boxing, kickboxing aren't junior high, high school, college sports makes it where the level of boxing and kickboxing, especially kickboxing, boxing is more popular in America than kickboxing is. Just the fact that not that many kids do it compared to wrestling makes the standard of excellence in wrestling a little bit higher.
Yeah, you think about, I'm gonna join the kickboxing team. It's just, you really need to seek that out. It's it takes us, and it also takes a special parent, that's going to be sure, son, let's introduce you to this, this
Johnny,
gym.
get kicked in the head too much today, Johnny.
Yeah,
here's your lunchbox.
But to be the national champion in kickboxing in America, I have no idea what the numbers are, but say you got to compete against 10,000 people versus the national champion in wrestling, it's you're competing against hundreds of thousands of people,
right?
Or something like that. There's just many more layers of difficulty to go through to be a champion.
Yeah. For sure.
It doesn't mean that the champs in kickboxing are bad or anything like that.
No,
but
definitely
there's
not.
just more competition in wrestling.
Yeah.
It's to be a CrossFit champ. 2 years ago when it was brand spanking new, there's just less people to compete against than to be a wrestling champ. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
There's just less people to go up against.
Yeah. I got a question for you, man. I asked Ryan this question. He said, I don't know, I guess you should ask an actual fighter who'd been in the ring. But we described how his rule was to orchestrate all these competing things, keep you dialed in, kind of ramp up and bring all the energy and tension of the training camp to a fever pitch, and then control it and hold it. And then obviously the idea is to have that be a peak and release it in the ring. But in my mind, I imagine this is an emotional moment. You're walking to the ring. You're getting in the octagon. The people drop the banners behind you. You're dancing and prancing in front of another guy. What do you do? This is an intense moment. What do you do to prepare yourself mentally? What are your little steps walking from the locker room to the ring, how do you get yourself ready to actually execute the plan and actually fight? I mean, you not think of anything? Is there clear, like 4 to 5 things you always do? I'd love to hear about it.
I think the most important thing for me, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, is I don't want to get myself too fired up. I want complete calm, like have a little zen moment, and not think about, okay, there's, I'm in front of a big crowd, the lights are on, this is, the cameras are rolling, I don't want to think about that. I want to just focus on me and how I performed in the past at my best, and that's super calm, but also at the same time, like relaxed but ready to move when I need to, and so staying warm, I think that's a big deal. It's like timing your warm up perfectly is kind of difficult. You don't want to do too much, but at the same time you don't want to do.
That's the temptation. Right?
Yeah.
To dance around back there too much. We see that in competitions all the time. People warm up usually too much.
Yeah. I don't want to be hopping around and tiring myself out.
Also, you see that in weightlifting, but in CrossFit, I think it's too little.
It's different in fighting too. Like you might have 3 fights before you all go the full 3 5-minute rounds,
so
or it might be 3 2-minute knockouts. And so, is it an hour away or is it 10 minutes away?
Exactly.
I really don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's a TV schedule too. So it's sometimes they're gonna hold you. You're ready to go. You see, oh, that was a quick fight. I'm up. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gets you worked up a little more, and then they say, "Oh, hold, we got 10 more minutes to waste."
And dude, that will physically exhaust you if you're not right on top of the mental game.
Yeah.
What do you say the fear level is? 1 to 10 when you step in the octagon?
I don't feel any at all.
No fear.
Yeah, because it's just I'm not focused on what this guy's doing or
nothing negative. You're focused on.
I'm focused on all on me. It's just this is what I need to do to go win. And it's not like.
So you feel like if you started focusing on the other guy, that's when fear might creep in and negative ideas.
Yeah.
Well, they say like rule number 1: anything that is definitely outside of your control. If you obsess about that, it's going to eat you away and distract your performance. Things you cannot control, you cannot concern yourself with. You got to fucking prepare, work hard, come in with a plan, and believe in that you can do your best. That's about all you can do.
Do you think that's a natural inclination you have, and that's why you've kind of been successful this whole time because you're always just kind of focused on what you can control, or is that something that you learned over time?
Yeah, it was definitely learned. I remember in high school getting ready for a wrestling match and just being like amping myself up to like the point of no return. I'm just like, whoa, I got that high school testosterone running through me hard, and I'm just like trying,
I'm immortal.
Yeah. And like, man, anybody, you can keep that up for 2 minutes max, and then you're just like, whoa, I just lost everything.
And that's usually, you don't want that moment coming right when a guy's like throwing fists to your face as you pin down, like, oh geez, I warmed up too hard, got a little too psyched. Now I'm getting, my face is hamburger meat.
Yeah. So I think a lot, I think a lot of people's perception is like, man, these two guys are angry with each other. There's so much heated emotion coming. It's like, no, you're out there to execute, and it's how do you do that best in anything? You're calm. If you're letting your emotions run wild, you're not gonna.
Also, when you give yourself permission to say, I'm having a good time doing this.
Yeah, and I also think you start overthinking things, or you start having thoughts in your head during a fight. You're not focused,
Right.
And my first fight in the UFC, I remember thinking, wow, I'm standing here with this guy, and like I think I'm actually winning. Like I just landed a couple kicks, and like shit, this feels good. Like
holy fuck, I'm winning.
That was the beginning of the end.
And, it was all downhill from there. I was like, whoa, But it was that thought, like that I attribute to like. All right, you're just
that
not
thought
focused.
was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, you're not focused anymore.
It always happens like it always happens like in football. As soon, and you'll know, your precious Seahawks never make this mistake, do they? Where if you take your fucking foot off the brake and you go, okay, now we're just gonna try to keep the win. We've kicked ass. We got some progress. Let's not lose the thing, and then you lose the thing.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
How do you keep yourself from having those thoughts now? Like, I mean, it's obviously just maintaining focus, but did those thoughts start to come in? And you're like, whoa. Get back in the fight.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have my mental cues. You know what I mean? It's like I'm focused on my job at hand. I know everything almost everything that this guy is gonna do, but I'm not concerned with that. I'm concerned with what I'm gonna do first. But this is what could when I do this is what could happen. So it's just kind of like, it's almost like you confuse yourself a little bit. You're just like, you have all these scenarios in your head, but you're super focused on what you need to do and how you're going to win the fight. That, those other thoughts just, there's not even, I don't feel like, oh man, I got to keep myself from thinking, this guy could uncork a freaking.
Don't think so much. You're thinking too much. Oh shit, I'm thinking too much. How do I stop thinking too much?
Yeah. And we work with a guy at Andy's school, Lenny Wiersma. He's the sports psychologist, and he is like, he's legit. He helps us focus on those things that will calm us down when we're in that situation, or any distraction that could come into your head, or any doubt you have. He's like, well, let's discuss that, and here are some things that you can do to keep those things from coming into your head. I think that'd be
a practical thing for people to take away, because they're going to have competitions, they're going to have tough training sessions, they're going to start freaking out. To have some go-to simple things to calm themselves would be really valuable, I think.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I used to do, and this goes back to like my wrestling days, where I also worked with a sports psychologist quite a bit, because I think a lot of people don't realize that it's so much a mental game. Everything that it's your state of mind is so important, and I think that's neglected a lot.
Yeah.
But one of the things I remember, I used to be a slow starter in college. I would go out there, and first period I'd just kind of like, it'd take me a while to kind of rev my engine up, and then by the third period I'm doing whatever I want to this guy, and it's like, why didn't you do that in the beginning?
Right.
Make this impressive.
Well, I wanted to get to know the guy,
Yeah. Yeah. We got to be friends first. So, so I used to, when I would wrestle somebody good, I'd be slow starting, and I remember getting to a point where, I'm like losing the takedown battle. I would get taken down first, and it was like, this guy has no business taking me down right now. What am I doing? I need to kind of stop all those thoughts and focus. So I just, you go out of bounds or whatever it is, and you feel like you need to refocus. I would, and this was kind of my mental cue, is I would look down at my shoelaces and just kind of, do it for like a long second or two.
Right.
And it would just, and that was my cue to kind of, all right, like
so
let's bring it, let's bring everything back in, and just, okay, what you need to do.
Right.
Go out there and execute. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's super powerful. I mean, that sounds like nothing, but it's like, it's very powerful.
It's like a teacher coming to a noisy classroom going, hey, all right. And you go, oh, and you kind of get your shit together.
Yeah.
It's that little action tied. Okay, this is my reminder. Time to silence.
Yeah, but it's something that, I wouldn't say, hey, if you're doing this event, just make sure you look at your shoe. When you're.
It's not going to work for everybody.
No, it's something that you need to.
It's not the shoe. It's the.
Yeah.
People are going to listen to this, and they're going to start looking at their shoes, and people are going to be running right past them.
Yeah. I looked at my shoe, and I still got crushed.
That guy's full of shit.
shoe thing. Yeah.
So a big part of that really is just like in that moment, you're letting the past be the past. Everything that's already happened has already happened. Don't fucking worry about it. You're starting off right now in this moment, 0-0,
exactly.
and you're moving forward.
There's nothing I can do about that, but move forward and do what I know how to do.
Yeah.
So, and it is something that's learned. That's my cue to get things going.
Yeah. No one's gonna have this as a natural skill, probably in a very stressful situation. At least most people won't, where they naturally just keep cool. No, this is a learned skill. Yeah. This is something, if you work on it and you drill it, it'll come. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's same as throwing a punch. Like if I have no one teaching me how to do it, I mean, what the hell is it going to look like? But you have someone helping you focus on, okay, these are the mechanics of throwing a punch. This is the quickest way to get it out. Whatever it is, it's the same exact thing for your brain. You need to work on that. And I think a lot of people neglect that as well.
Yeah. I got one more question before we go.
All right.
Don't make it a silly question. Are you gonna make it a silly question?
No, it's a two-part question.
I saw the twinkle in your eye. Let's have it.
How'd you lose your first your tooth the first time? And how'd you lose it the same tooth the second time?
The first story is not that exciting, but I think it was the year I graduated school.
Andy's breaking stuff in the corner.
Yeah.
He's got a PhD, but he can't plug his phone in.
No. So, the year I graduated school, I competed. It was 2004, so I competed in the Olympic trials that year. And I think it was my very first match. I was, wrestling a guy that, I ended up beating handily, but it was a guy that, it was like kind of like my warm-up match. And he was like super strong. He was like super strong, stiff guy. So I was just like, all right, I got this. So, I'm hitting a duck under, and for people that don't know what that is, like, I'm going around behind them, and he was so stiff and like just like moved very awkwardly. As soon as I did it, he was like turned and was just kind of like wink. And my teeth happened to be right there, like right in line with his elbow. So I'm like, doing, and my tooth, the whole thing didn't break off initially. It was like kind of 3/4, like at an angle.
Yeah, like a Dumb and Dumber, like Jim Carrey's chip tooth thing.
I did that to somebody once. I knocked out like 3/4 of their tooth. They had to have,
like, hey, fuck,
it wasn't something that you can just bond, and so they had to have the whole thing done. I was like,
oh, hey, it looks okay, man. I can't hardly notice that.
I know, but actually
that would make you feel bad.
It was the first, it was my first match in the trials. So there was, I'm if I'm gonna go win the trials, I have like 4 more matches to go, and I don't know if you've ever had like nerve pain in from a tooth, like
I've heard it's bad.
To a cold popsicle or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like a cool breeze coming by your open tooth hole. It's like you don't want to breathe.
I've heard it hurts to breathe. I know someone who's had like their 4 front teeth like knocked out like that, and they had just exposed nerves the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. So
hi, Derek.
So the rest of the tournament, I'm warming up, and you guys all see me with my water bottle. I'm all constantly drinking water and warming up, staying hydrated for my matches, and I can't get water into my mouth without it hitting that tooth hole and like striking that nerve. So I'm just like, I don't know what to do. So I think in between rounds I went out and had lunch or something. I took a straw and like a cup from the restaurant, and like I'm warming up in the back, and I'm like very carefully, I'm bouncing around warming up, drilling with somebody or whatever, and then I stop very carefully, put the straw in my mouth, and I'm like suck it back, and then I would like tilt my head back, and like there's no way water is getting in this area.
Jeez.
So it was pretty brutal, but like when you're out there wrestling, it's kind of like you're breathing heavy, and that's gonna hurt, but your adrenaline's pumping enough that you're not gonna feel it.
So how'd you lose it the second time?
So
I heard that was the first story is not that good. The second story is what's supposed to be funny.
This is the better one. So eventually my tooth gets all cut out, and I have to have a flipper, which is a retainer with a little fake tooth stuck on the front of it. So that's what I wear to look handsome. And,
we're not laughing at you.
No.
With you.
Yeah.
So
we don't get punched, so we're laughing together as a friendly family here.
Yeah. So I just competed overseas. I think I'm maybe in like Azerbaijan, some place where you wouldn't be like, wait, that's a country? Yes, it's a Eastern European country, and it's a great place to vacation. I recommend it to anyone. No, not really.
That's a little sarcasm there.
It's a little gray. It's a lot gray.
Yeah. So I'm on my way back, and I'm coaching at the time. To supplement your income when you're competing as in wrestling is, you're a coach at a university or whatever, and it gives you opportunity to train with the guys on your team or whatever. So I visited my family up in Pennsylvania, and I was coaching at Virginia Tech at the time. And so I flew out of Philadelphia to go overseas. And when I came back, I flew into Philadelphia and had to drive back down to Virginia Tech. So my sleep is so jacked up at this point. I came back overseas and was just kind of like, ooh. And I went to bed and, slept like 2 hours, and I'm wide awake in the middle of the night. And, the next day my head coach calls and he's like, hey, man, we really need to get back here. What are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm kind of trying to adjust to the time, and I was thinking about coming back tomorrow, and he's like, man, it'd be really nice to have you today, or, whatever it was.
Right.
Like, he wanted me to come before I was really ready. And So, of course, I'm driving back, and I start to like. It's not like oh yeah, I was dozing off. It was like, man, I would just like the lights would just shut out, and I would be like.
Wake up.
And then I wake up like
exits down the road or something.
Yeah, like
Oh,
I'm like, boom, 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 like hitting the rumble strip on the side of the
Those
thing.
drunk bumps are there to keep you awake. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I tell
exactly.
my wife all the time. Is if I'm hitting them, and they're there so I don't run off the road. I can take
Yeah,
naps.
it's a friendly reminder. Yeah. So I ended up actually. I think I was only like it's probably about a 6.5 hour drive, and I was like maybe 20 minutes from my house. So I'm like almost there. I pulled over once and like. Kind of like got myself. I'm like, hey, smacking myself in the face. Quit falling asleep. What's wrong with you? Like you're tougher than
You're
this.
gonna fucking die, dude.
Yeah. So I'm all windows down. It's cold out. It's like the fall or something. And when the music's cranked all the way up.
Yep.
And I just completely like out to
Oh, no.
nothing's gonna wake me up. And I'm just like, "What?" And so. I come to and I notice I'm like something doesn't feel right. I'm in the grass, like there's a big section in between the highway. I'm in the middle. I'm in the grass sliding around.
Oh shit!
I wake up and immediately I'm scared, so I just stomp on the brakes, and man, I start like my rear end starts coming around. I'm just like, okay, like let off the brakes for a second. Like, let's slowly come to a stop, and I'm just like. I'm like, oh man, I'm really thankful I woke up and I'm like, I didn't like smash into somebody or whatever it is, and so I don't realize this at the time, but coming up in this grassy area, there's a slight hill forming, and so I'm like trying my best to slow down and not slide out of control and like trying to veer towards the road, and as I do that, I hit this hill in the middle of the road, and I'm probably at this point going like 35. Like I'm not going fast at all. And it was like super slow motion. I just like hit this hill, started like teetering sideways and like boom, just like landing on the top of my
Dukes
on
of
my
Hazzard
roof.
maneuver.
Yeah, so
Oh,
I'm
no.
like, so now I'm upside down and like my seatbelt's holding me in place. And I'm just
At
like,
this point, you go, "Fuck."
shit, what, man, like this is, I was so disappointed in myself, like
yeah.
I have that like, I don't know. It's like when you take in the groceries from home, like you want to get them all in one trip. It's like, like
Same thing.
Yeah, like I really just let myself down right now. I left that bag in the trunk. What the same.
You sissy, you succumb to sleepiness.
Yeah, I wasn't mad that my car was crashed up. I was mad that I didn't make it like the next 20 minutes. So. Meanwhile,
You fighters are weird, man.
You get way too many shots to the head.
yeah.
I'd be like, I'm alive, thank God.
Yeah, no, I'm upset. I'm mad. So, sitting on the seat next to me as I'm traveling, I take out my tooth because I don't have anybody to impress on the road. So
Yeah.
Let teeth breathe a little bit.
yeah, let it breathe. So. I crawl out of the car and I realize, I left my wallet, my phone, and my tooth in the car. Like I gotta climb back in here and get it. There's like broken glass everywhere, and I'm like fishing around through. And
Where's my tooth?
Yeah, so I find everything except my tooth. I'm just like, where is this thing? And I remember like asking the cop, I'm like, hey, you have a flashlight? You like help me search around the area, because and like he just had. I'm like, yeah, I lost my tooth somewhere. He's like. Yeah, have you been drinking tonight, son? And I was like, nah. I was like, listen, I had, it's a long story, but I lost my tooth. So I end up not finding it, and tow truck comes, I get a ride with him and make it back to my place. And my car was totaled, and like
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. So I'm like, first, I don't have a car. And I also don't have a tooth, so I'm like I'm running around the hills of Virginia like a toothless hillbilly, And I'm just like, man, I can't be this stereotype, Like I need, and at the, like you go to the dentist and you get a new tooth made, it's like $500, and I'm just like,
It's a practical bummer. It's
yeah,
like, this is not good.
So I'm like, all right, I should probably do that, but I also really need to go buy a car. So
Tooth or a car?
Yeah, it's like, which is more important right now? So I ended up I'm driving up to like a half hour outside of town to go car shopping with a friend of mine, and on the way back, I'm like, this looks familiar. I'm like, I think this is where I crashed my car. So I'm like, you know what? Pull over a second right here. So you see like broken glass, and there's like there's like pennies and stuff, like my change is everywhere, and I'm just like, yeah, this is right where I crashed. This is so weird, And I'm like, because it was like the middle of the night when I crashed, and so I'm walking around kicking stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what is that under that leaf? And man, sure enough, I bend down. I'm like, my tooth! My tooth! And I like brush it off, stick it back in my mouth, and the guy's like, what the? That's been exposed to the elements for quite some time. You sure you don't want to like wash that off a little bit? I'm like, nah, man, I miss this guy. It's been a couple weeks. So.
And now the fighters are an interesting community of human beings.
Yeah, and now I just choose not to wear it. I don't care.
That's kind of your thing. You guys got a sweet T-shirt with.
Yeah. So on your Instagram, you have Toothless Tuesday.
No Tooth Tuesday.
No tooth. No tooth Tuesday.
But Toothless Tuesday, that works too. I'll incorporate that too. I can make 2 posts in one day. No, that's my thing.
So follow Durkin on Instagram,
official Durkin,
and then, so you can see his No Tooth / Toothless Tuesday.
And we'll link it all up. We'll link it all up, including that sweet video you squirting fluids through the tooth hole into your mouth.
Yes,
we'll put that up on the show notes and blog.
Yeah, I can drink without opening my mouth, guys.
Yeah.
Not to brag or
Pretty
anything.
impressive.
All the ladies are swooning. Official Durkin. For Instagram. What else?
Or you can also hashtag Adventure Tooth.
Adventure
Yes,
Tooth.
that's the other entity.
Man, I don't know if we keep up all these tooth hashtags, man.
Does your tooth hole have its own Instagram account?
That's
we're
working on that.
That's the next step.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to promote before we go?
No. I mean,
any products? Maybe T-shirts.
Well, yeah. I have a pretty funny T-shirt.
It's my favorite T-shirt in my wardrobe right now.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
They've seen it on this show. I've worn it a couple times, but I've never explained why I'm wearing it.
Know.
But if you see me on the show with a greenish, tannish shirt with this
a giant toothless head.
Yeah, with a guy with no tooth.
Yeah.
That's
me, guys.
You just got dirked.
For the record, it is the most comfortable T-shirt I've ever worn. Can people buy these, or you
they
give up on
can.
it?
It's but I only have extra large right now, and I'm kind of like, do I restock it? No, because like I probably had like 25 sales. So,
but now people are gonna want that tooth, man.
Yeah.
They want that tooth.
No,
T-shirt.
so I only have extra large, and I just at officialdurkin.com you can pick up your sweet T-shirt.
If you're extra large.
Yeah, if you happen to be an extra large
and also,
individual.
in all seriousness, do that and help support the guy on his road. Like we can't wait to see what you do next, man.
Yeah,
it'd be cool to see how you develop.
I've been fortunate with people helping me along the way. I just for my last fight, I got a nice a mountain bike sponsor, which I thought I was like, man, I finally made it.
I mean, those bikes are sweet.
Yeah, Niner is the company, and they're just like a bunch of awesome people. They were, they support athletes, but obviously not. They've never really done an MMA athlete sponsorship before, so it's kind of unique for them. But for me, it was like, man, this is the and you said you felt it. The first time you ever rode one of their bikes, you were like, whoa, this is so different and awesome.
Yeah,
and
I'm not a big cyclist, but I've ridden my fair share of mountain bikes. And, and I was given one for a race, and it was. I was pleasantly surprised at how good the ride was. Yeah,
exactly. And I've always ridden bikes, and it's just been part of my life, and part of staying healthy and staying in shape.
Yeah,
and as soon as I was the same reaction I had. As soon as I rode that bike, I was like, wow, this is different. This is why people pay thousands of dollars for a bike.
So if you see a giant toothless man with giant hands and unbelievably voluminous lungs beside you on a car near Orange County on the freeway, go, holy fuck, man, it's Durkin.
Yeah. Nice Niner bike, bro.
Hey, Joe, Barbell Shrugged, bro, Q. You're another fucking weirdo, man.
Awesome. Thanks
I'm
for joining
striving
us.
to make the croissants.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, that was awesome, dude.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Now, I said I kind of officially made it with getting some sweet sponsors, but now being on the Barbell Shrugged podcast, that is
now
what,
you made it.
Now I'm here.
Now
He was trying to get in our pants now, dude.
You're at the top.
Plenty of time left in the day.
Awesome.
All right, thanks.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Join the conversation every week after the episode over at barbellshrugged.com. This is also where you'll find new episodes of Barbell Shrugged, Technique Wad, Nuggets and Pearls, Barbell Business, Get Change, plus new articles every day on our daily blog, written by us, guests of the show, and some of the biggest names in strength and conditioning. So, go there and leave a comment now. Oh my gosh, wow, that's so cool. Yay, that's so awesome.
Did you like this video? If so, subscribe to our channel and share this with your friends.
And if you want even more free, awesome resources to help you reach your fitness goals, plus some updates that we only share over email, head over to barbellshrugged.com and sign up for the newsletter.